Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the CMRITO webinars on professional practice issues. My name is Linda Gough, and I'm the Registrar and CEO of CMRITO. It's a great pleasure to be with you today, and let's get started. Our latest edition of What You Must Know About a Legal Practice was sent to all members by email last week. So you should have it in your inbox. It's also available on the CMRITO website under our resources publications section, where you can find all the other What You Must Know Abouts and other publications such as the Standards of Practice. As you know, CMRITO, our mandate, is to serve and protect the public interest through the regulation of the profession of medical radiation and imaging technology. So we do this in three ways. Firstly, by registration. We control who is able to be registered and then practice the profession. All applicants must meet the registration requirements set out in the registration regulation in the Medical Radiation and Imaging Technology Act. So this ensures that all our members are qualified to practice. So that's the first step in protecting the public, only letting those who are qualified to practice to be registered and able to practice the profession in Ontario. The second way that we protect the public is making sure that our members continue to practice competently, safely, and ethically. And so this is the Quality Assurance Program. Every year, members are required to refresh their knowledge, to participate in the QA program, and to make sure that they are practicing competently, safely, and ethically. This happens throughout your career, right? You're always doing that. And then the third way is to investigate and address complaints and reports regarding a member's conduct. And we may get these complaints and reports from members of the public, from patients, from employers. There's lots of different ways that this information can come to the college, but it's our job to investigate those complaints and deal with professional conduct issues that thankfully happen very infrequently in our profession, but it's still an important way of making sure that the public is protected. Mandatory registration protects the public. The public has a right to receive medical radiation and imaging technology services from qualified MRITs who are registered with CMRITO. So this is the same for all the regulated health professions in Ontario, right? We all operate under the same umbrella legislation, the Regulated Health Professions Act, and you always want to make sure that your doctor, your dentist, your chiropractor, your massage therapist, that all those individuals are in fact registered to practice, that they're competent to practice, and that they're practicing competently through the registration in their regulatory college. Just the same for MRITs. The other way it protects the public is by holding members accountable. So once you're registered with the college, one of the things that you have to do in your practice is practice in accordance with the law and in accordance with the standards of practice set by the profession, set by the college. And so you do that every day. Our members do that every day without even thinking about it. It's part of your practice, and that's terrific. But ultimately, what this is doing is creating a safe framework to ensure that the public receive safe MRIT services from our members. An individual must be registered with CMRITO in order to practice the profession in any of the 5 specialties regulated by the college. Also to hold themselves out as a medical radiation and imaging technologist, and to use the specialty titles and abbreviations appropriate to their specialty that's set out in our registration regulations. So, what does practicing the profession mean? Well, it means performing medical radiation and imaging technology procedures as set out in the scope of practice statement. So, the scope of practice statement is a descriptor, it says what it is that an MRIT does. And we go into that in more detail in our previous webinar and publication, What You Must Know About Performing Procedures. Practicing the profession also means performing any of the controlled acts authorized to CMRITO members, including applying electromagnetism for MRI and sound waves for ultrasound. And of course, also applying ionizing radiation as set out under the Healing Arts Radiation Protection Act. Here's the specialty titles and abbreviations that our members are able to use specific to their specialty. So we have MRTR, MRTT, MRTN, MRTMR, and DMS for our most recent specialty, diagnostic medical sonography. So this is an important public protection piece that everybody knows, that if you're using these specialty titles, that you are registered with CMRITO and that you're qualified to practice. And ultimately, that's our role, right? Is to protect the public. So CMRITO registration protects the public from unqualified practitioners. If an individual doesn't meet the registration requirements, then they're not able to practice the profession. They won't become registered with the college. That happens very rarely, but it can happen for individuals who fail to meet all the requirements set out in the registration regulation, such as successfully completing the CMRITO approved examination. So that brings us to a legal practice, and it's illegal in Ontario for an individual who is not a CMRITO member to practice the profession, to hold themselves out as someone who's qualified to practice, or to use the restricted titles as set out under the MRIT Act that we just spoke to. So you might ask, how are students able to perform procedures without being registered? Because we all know that it's an important element of practice is to train future MRITs so that they're able to provide services in the future. So how are students able to do this while not being registered? Well, there are exemptions under the legislation. So under the RHPA and the HARPA Act, these exemptions permit students to apply forms of energy and to perform their authorized acts, provided they are actively enrolled in an educational program that is approved by CMRITO, and they are under the supervision of a member of CMRITO. So this is a method that protects the public by permitting students who are completing an approved educational program in one of the specialties to gain the necessary clinical skills. As you know, you can't just learn this profession from a book. It's not just an academic profession at all, that we need to be able to engage in safe clinical practice with our patients. And so this is the way that we have a safe mechanism to allow this to happen. It can happen safely, competently, and ethically in a safe, supervised practice setting that ensures the public is protected. So, the two things: the students must be engaged in an active CMRITO approved educational program, and they must be supervised by a member of CMRITO. So these exemptions don't apply to individuals who are not enrolled in the program, even if the individual is supervised by a member of CMRITO. So you can't just have a past friend or a past member who's a friend come and do retraining in your department, or you can't have an internationally educated person come and do procedures in your department without with supervision, because they're not part of an approved educational program. So this framework really protects the public by making sure that those two elements are in place: an approved educational program, which of course is accredited, so those programs have to meet certain standards, and also that they're supervised by a member of the college. So that's great for the students, but then what happens when they've completed their program? So, this is a question we get quite frequently. As you can imagine, what happens to the students once they've completed the program and they're not yet registered with CMRITO? So, the answer is no. They're not able to perform those procedures because the exemptions no longer apply to students who've completed their program, even if they are supervised by a CMRITO member. And practicing the profession after completing an educational program and before becoming registered with CMRITO is considered a legal practice. So we have this gap, right? We have this period where the students have completed their program. They then go on to write their certification exams, and they're waiting for the results so that they can become registered with the college. And no, they're not able to apply a form of energy or to perform any of the authorized acts during that time. So, what do we do? Well, we've tried to make sure that we've got all the application information ahead of time and that the students have met all the requirements for registration, with the exception of waiting for their exam results. And then once we get those, then we're able to register them very quickly, sometimes or often within a day or two, and then they're able to get out there and practice. But we still get calls from managers who say, I've got this really bright student. I want to offer them a position. I don't want to run the risk that they're going to go somewhere else. And so, what can I do? Well, in that gap in between when they've completed an approved program and before they become registered, they're not able to perform procedures. But there's lots of other things that they could be doing within the department. Provided that they're not hired as an MRIT and they're not performing procedures, then you can hire them pending their registration with the college. And then, of course, they're able to practice medical radiation and imaging technology. So, what happens if an individual has practiced illegally and then applies for registration with the college? So, if we discover that an applicant may have or currently is practicing illegally, then that information is considered as part of their application. So, we talked about how the registration regulation sets out the requirements for registration with the college. And one of the requirements is a good character requirement that requires an applicant's past and present conduct to demonstrate that they will practice the profession with decency, honesty, and integrity, and in accordance with the law. So, that's the area. If we get information that they've been practicing illegally, then they've already demonstrated that they're not going to practice, or that they haven't practiced in accordance with the law previously. So that illegal practice is considered by the registrar and or the registration committee in assessing the application. So, as the registrar, when I get an application for registration, if the applicant meets all the requirements for registration, then I can register that individual. And that's what happens in 99% of the applications that come to the college from our Ontario approved programs. Sometimes we do get evidence of illegal practice, and in that case, I will refer that application onto the registration committee for a decision. And the registration committee may register the applicant, refuse the certificate of registration, or may put terms, conditions, or limitations on the certificate of registration. So, at the very least, it's going to slow down the application and registration process if it has to go to the registration committee, um, or at the worst, the registration committee could refuse the application. So we don't mess around with illegal practice. We do want to know about it, and we will deal with it, because ultimately we want to make sure that the public is protected. Another question that we get asked quite frequently is, if an individual is registered to practice in another jurisdiction, can they practice in Ontario? Well, not until they're registered with CMRITO. So there are no exceptions to this, but if an MRIT is registered in another jurisdiction, so in another Canadian province, then it doesn't take very long for us to be able to register them here in Ontario. That process is very quick. And of course, we've already said, if an individual practices in Ontario without being registered, then that illegal practice would be part of their application for registration and considered by the registrar and the registration committee. People often get regulation and credentialing kind of mixed up. So, what if an individual is certified by a credentialing body? So, as we know, all MRITs in Ontario are certified by either the Canadian Association of Medical Radiation Technologists or Sonography Canada, or for a small group of sonographers during the grandparenting period in 2018, CMRITO was accepting ARDMS registration as evidence of certification. And that's one of the registration requirements. So, certification is not the same as being registered with the provincial regulator. And why is that? Well, certification certainly indicates that you've met a certain level of education and competence that's required to practice safely, but it occurs at a point in time. It occurs after the student has completed their educational program, or before the international applicant is able to be registered with the college. It's a point in time. Whereas registration with the regulator ensures continued competence and fitness to practice throughout a member's career. So, this is an important component. Every year, you're asked to demonstrate that you're practicing competently and that you're practicing in accordance with the law and that you're participating in the quality assurance program. And you attest to that as a self regulated professional on your annual renewal. So the college is assured that you are meeting those ongoing requirements. And of course, we still have our quality assurance program that makes sure members continue to maintain their competence. And we have the complaints and discipline process that can address any issues related to the professional conduct of a member while they're registered with the college. college. And so, of course, registration with the regulator is not just a point in time, it lasts throughout your active career while you're practicing the profession, whether it be 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, or like me, over 40 years. So, an important component of public protection. As we've just explored, registration ensures that an MRIT possesses the knowledge, skill, and judgment to safely practice throughout their career. And again, practicing as an MRIT in Ontario without being registered, holding a current active certificate of registration is a legal practice. What can employers do to make sure that the MRITs practicing in their departments are legally authorized to practice? Well, you can check the public register. The college is required to have a public register, which is a list of all its members, both current and past members. And so, as a manager, you can go on the public register of members to verify the registration practice or the registration status, sorry, of every MRIT that you have in your facility. And the public register is updated 3 or 4 times a day, so you can rely on it to be the most current and accurate information on active and past members. So employers sometimes an area that MRITs can get into trouble is if they take a leave, if they take a parental leave or a maternity leave, sometimes they can forget to register when they're coming back to the department. So just check, just remind them that they need to register again, to re-register, and then everything is fine, and there won't be any illegal practice, which we want to avoid. Employers can search the public register by the place of practice. So if you go to the public register and enter your place of practice or your facility, and that will pull up a list of all the MRITs who have listed that place of practice as their, who have listed that facility as their place of practice. So you'll be able to check to make sure that everybody is registered and that they've also got their place of employment up to date. And the public register is available 24/7 on our website. Here's what it looks like. This is my public register. So it has the name of the individual, their registration status, their registration history, their specialty, whether there's been any suspensions for failure to pay fees, if there's any findings from a discipline committee, if there's any terms, conditions, or limitations on the certificate of registration, all that information, all the publicly available information about our members is available on the website, on the public register. So what about reporting illegal practice? So often it's the employers who find out about illegal practice first. And so it may have come to a manager's attention that an individual who is not registered with the college is seeking employment as an MRIT or is currently practicing the profession without being registered. And you're encouraged to contact the college and make a report. So we're here at the end of the phone to help you with those situations. What do we do about illegal practice? Well, we take it very seriously. And of course, because of our public protection role, and we will follow up on any reports of individuals who are practicing the profession without being registered with CMRITO. And if this is related to an application, then it may result in the refusal of the application. Or if it's an individual who is not, hasn't done any training as an MRIT or is not in the process of applying for registration, then we will prosecute that individual through Ontario's Superior Court. We have transparency regarding illegal practice, so the names of individuals who've been found guilty by the Ontario Superior Court of illegally practicing as a medical radiation and imaging technologist are published on the website. Unfortunately, that happens very infrequently, but we do take it very seriously and we will prosecute in order to protect the public. We've talked about how it's important for individuals to be registered with the college to ensure the public is protected by making sure MRITs are meeting the CMRITO standards of practice, and that all individuals practicing the profession are under the jurisdiction of the CMRITO. So individuals who are not members of the CMRITO, we don't have any jurisdiction over. That's why we have to take them to the Ontario Superior Court if an individual is practicing without being registered with the college. But of course, if they're a member of the college, then all of our processes apply and we're able to investigate and a complaint or a report about an individual member's conduct. Here's all our contact information. You can find us on our website, by email, through phone. We've got practice advisors, registration advisors who are able to assist you with your questions. And it's very important that you contact us. If you do have any questions, we're here to help and to make sure that everyone is doing their job of protecting the public. And there we are. That's the end of our presentation. Thank you so much for your attention. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to email us or give us a call on the phone. You take care now, and we'll see you all next time. Thank you, everyone. Bye.